All right, well, thank you, Candice, for that kind introduction. And once again, welcome everybody along to Lighthouse today. As Candice said, my name's Tony Lane. I'm from Kazar Slaven. I'll tell you a little bit about what we do in a moment. But the purpose of today's session and the sessions that move on from here is really to have a look at a particular business scenario which may have some analogies and some synergies to circumstances you've experienced yourself, somebody you know may have experienced, or things that you read in the media and you think, gee, I wonder how that works. And I wonder how they either got out of that situation or managed to recover from where they were. So I wouldn't place too much weight on the particular facts of the case study that we'll move through today, but more what the issues are and how those might be common across any particular business scenario, whether it's your own or whether it's somebody else's that you may know of. At the outset, I think it's important just to note that today's case study is fictitious, even though I made it up. It does bear some resemblance to some real world scenarios that I've actually been involved in. So it's cobbled together a number of things. It's a little bit complex in some areas and we can make it as hard or as simple as we want, but it does give us an opportunity to talk about a range of different areas. And over the following presentations, you'll hear from professionals in other areas that are allied to what I do and closely aligned with the needs of the particular people in this case study. So you'll hear from accountants, from solicitors, from people involved in marketing and human resources, as well as people skilled in venture capital and seed funding, finance, to talk about how each of those areas interact with the characters in our case study. And hopefully at the end we can bring it all together to provide you with something that's a little bit entertaining, but also very useful in your particular business circumstances. So our case study today is entitled How to Fix Your Business When You Don't Know What the Problem Is or What the Problems Are. Very rarely is there simply one problem that's causing a business some concerns. Most often there are a number of them. And although viewed in isolation, they might seem trivial or manageable. Often the business owners aren't as engaged with those particular problems as they ought to be, or they put them to the back burner because there are other more pressing things on the table at the moment. So we'll talk about the case study in a minute and I'll try and tease out for you some of those particular issues and how in isolation they might not be particularly important things, but when combined with another particular event or a sequence of events, all of a sudden there becomes this tumult of things happening which can rapidly spiral out of control. Now, when I was first approached by Candice and Anna to assist with this, I had some reservations because those of you who are unfamiliar with Kazar Slaven and may not be able to read the very fine print down at the bottom of our logo, the last line says insolvency practitioners. We deal with companies and businesses and individuals who are at their lowest financial ebb. They are in distress, they need assistance, they may not know where to go, and we see people who are at their most vulnerable, which then presents me with a unique challenge to make this not sound like you attending your own funeral. So one of the skills that we bring to the table as insolvency practitioners is being able to highlight some of these problems and also to get in at the start, to get in as early as we possibly can to give you the best opportunity, the most options to rebuild and to restructure. And that's really what our tagline's about. It's about reviewing what you're currently doing or what your circumstances are, to refocus on the things that matter, the things that are important and the things that you need to do, and then to rebuild what you've got now for a future. And we believe in that quite strongly. Many people unfairly, I think, present what we do as being a corporate undertaker. We're the financial street sweepers of the world. We come along with the truck, we clean up the mess, and everything's pretty again. It's not quite that simple. And hopefully, as we move through the case study today, we'll get a grasp of exactly what's involved in what we do. So today's session is going to move through a number of things, and perhaps not quite the way in which you might have anticipated. We'll look at the case study and the particular issues, and I'm going to be asking you to help me identify what you think are issues that emerge from this particular scenario today. We'll look at a bit of a wants and a needs analysis. This is something that comes a lot from psychology and a lot from family law, and it's very relevant to this case study because what the individuals want versus what they and their business need can be two very, very divergent things. We'll look at what's real and what's not real. In business, not only in the financial side of a business, but in the tactile, the productive side of business, there are things that are real. There are things that will happen or won't happen. And there are things that are not real. You look at any balance sheet of any company and there are assets and there are liabilities on there that aren't real. They're just an accounting construct. And in the same way, businesses face particular challenges which, when you drill down into them, aren't the same as what they present on the surface. And hopefully we'll be able to look at some of those today. We'll look at issues surrounding what the core activity of this business is and what's not core, and what the impact of non-core activities can have on the heart of a business. There's a very common saying that runs through a lot of what I see, and it's called stick to your knitting. Do what you know. But that's not always the case because the world's greatest entrepreneurs have done things that they didn't know. They've just set out upon a new venture. They've had an idea and they've made it work. So what's involved in a core versus a non-core discussion for this particular scenario? And then we'll try and sum all of that up into something meaningful for you to take away today, and hopefully that's something that leads into the presentations from our other professionals as this series moves on. I like to run my presentations with a little bit of input from others, not just yourselves, but Chris Corrigan, for those of you who are around when the Patrick Stevedores debacle happened on the waterfronts and there was a big standoff with the unions there, gained quite some notoriety for his business prowess, if you call it that time. But planning in business is something that you cannot spend too little time on. Some people say there's such a thing as paralysis by analysis. I think that planning in business is one of the most important things that you can do, and it's not something that you set and forget. It's not something that happens at the outset of a business and then you leave it behind and then you go off on your merry way. It's something that needs to evolve with the business. It involves all sorts of things, from understanding what supply arrangements you have to goal setting. It's the entirety of your focus on where your business is now, where it's going and where you want it to be. So in that sense, let's have a look and let's walk through our case study. Let's, for those of you who have had an opportunity to read it, hopefully you're familiar with it. If you haven't, I'll talk you through it. And then at the end of that, we're going to chunk it down into bits and we'll have a look at what the particular issues are.